Hello friends and welcome into the Cowboys Report. We got some more news for you on today's show. Now if you watched our live video about the Cowboys hiring Mike McCarthy, you knew defensive coordinator was going to be a key one. This video was going to be the top 10 candidates, but the Cowboys moved incredibly quickly, as did head coach Mike McCarthy. They've tabbed Mike Nolan as the defensive coordinator, a name that I'm sure many of you have heard before. If you watched our live video, we mentioned Nolan had quickly earned some buzz as the likely target here. He is set to be the new defensive coordinator for the Cowboys. That's been widely reported right now. His background is both in 4-3 and in 3-4 schemes. He's done a little bit of both. I think his preference is 3-4, but he does and has done both. So you might not necessarily see a scheme change, but don't worry, we will discuss that plenty in this video. Now, there is some local ties for Mike Nolan. His dad was a Cowboys coach, briefly under Jimmy Johnson as well, for those of you who still desperately want to go back to the Jimmy Johnson era. He's got family in the area. He knows Mike McCarthy because when Mike Nolan was the head coach of the 49ers, one Mike McCarthy was his offensive coordinator. So there is some familiarity there, both with Nolan and the Cowboys and with Mike McCarthy. Makes sense as a fit. Now, as I mentioned, this was going to be the top 10 candidates, and I'll mention who were the top 5. Nolan was going to be number 1. Marvin Lewis was number 3. Kris Richard was going to be Marvin Lewis was number 2. Richard was number 3. We'll talk more about Richard in a little bit, what this means for the assistants currently on staff with the Dallas Cowboys, or at least still under contract for now. George Edwards of Minnesota, Joe Woods, those last two guys both had their contracts expiring. So grade this hire, of course, we asked you earlier today, because my oh my, how quickly things have moved in Dallas. They grade the Mike McCarthy one. Now we want to know about what you think about Mike Nolan as the defensive coordinator. So A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. I am on board with this move. I like bringing in some veteran experience. I think that's the common theme here that the Cowboys are going with at the moment. They want experience. That was Mike McCarthy. That's Mike Nolan. By the way, watch out for Jim Haslett potentially being maybe a linebackers coach on this staff, but we'll see how the rest of the staff is filled out. Now, those of you watching here on YouTube, you might get an ad break. If you do, scroll on down, reply to this. I'll make this the pinned comment. All right, now, if you're wondering some more background on Mike Nolan, where he's been, well, he's been around the league quite a bit. He has had a bunch of different, not just coaching jobs, but head coach and defensive coordinator jobs. Last time, he was the Falcons DC from 2012 to 2014, was the Dolphins DC as well, the Broncos DC in 2009. Most notably, I think, the Niners head coach from 2005 to 2008. Before that, he was the Ravens defensive coordinator in 2002 to 2004, which was probably the most notable defensive coordinator job he's had. For those of you that, want to go back all that way, he replaced someone named Marvin Lewis on that staff. And of course, Rex Ryan later came on down that pipeline as well. The Jets defense coordinator in 2002 was also with the Redskins and the Giants. Now, looks great for an older guy. He's not that old. He's still fairly young, but he has experience. And I think that's a key thing for the Dallas Cowboys. He knows how to be a defensive coordinator. That's not the case maybe for some of the more recent hires. Not so Rod Marinelli, maybe more so for Kris Richard. And I mentioned the experience. He's run both of the two schemes that are prevalent in today's NFL. Sorry, buddy, the Bear defense isn't run anymore. So which scheme should the Cowboys run? Type 34 if you want to run a 3-4 scheme, or type 43 if you want to run a 4-3 scheme. The Cowboys' current personnel definitely more suited for a 4-3, especially on the front. But as we'll break down in a bunch in this video, you're going to have to make some decisions either way. So let me know in the comments which scheme you want. 34, 4-3. Doesn't really impact your back four guys, your secondary, but it is going to have, I think, some notable impact on what you do with your defensive line and with your linebackers, one in particular that we'll get to. But with Nolan coming in as the Cowboys' new defensive coordinator, I am curious to see what they end up doing with the remaining coaches on staff. Kris Richard, Rod Marinelli, Ben Bloom, Greg Jackson, I believe all of their contracts are up. Leon Lett's the DT coach, but you're not going to let the hirings above you dictate what you do with Leon Lett. You'll let the new guys make the decisions there. I would not be surprised if, unlike the offensive coaching staff, if the defensive coaching staff has a complete overhaul. If Richard is out, if Marinelli is out, if Ben Bloom is out, and Greg Jackson is out. So we'll see what happens there and who McCarthy and Nolan and the Cowboys target to bring in on the defensive side of the ball, which I think we can all agree was in pretty big need of an overhaul. Now, today's show is brought to you by BetDSI. Head over to chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code Cowboys120 for a 120% deposit bonus. What that means is if you put down $50, they're going to give you an extra $60 for free. That is chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code Cowboys120 to get that deposit bonus. Let's talk now about the players on this roster and how a potential scheme change, if that is the route the Cowboys go, could be drastically affected. Now, for starters, a lot of guys are free agents. Malik Collins, Antoine Woods, Robert Quinn, Kerry Hyder, Daniel Ross, Christian Covington, Michael Bennett. And you might release or restructure Tyrone Crawford's contract. All of those guys are pending free agents. Now, if you stick with the 4-3 scheme, you know what happens here. If you move to a 3-4, you probably make DeMarcus Lawrence a either stand-up edge rusher or he's still going to be one of your edge guys. Maybe puts his hand on his ground. It's kind of more of a hybrid front. Mike Nolan's done that before. But either way, he's going to stay an edge rusher. Robert Quinn would work well if you bring him back as a stand-up outside linebacker in that 3-4 outside linebacker role. I think Tyrone Crawford, if he's brought back, Daniel Wise, and probably Joe Jackson and or Kerry Hyder would fit well as a 5 technique. That is a 3-4 defensive end. Depending on what 3-4 front you run, you still might have a 3 technique, and that's a Malik Collins or Tristan Hill type. But in a 3-4 scheme, and the Cowboys do still use a 1 technique, maybe it's more of a true 0 technique. But either way for the Cowboys this year, you are going to need to figure out who's your run stopper next year. Antoine Woods is an RFA. Christian Covington's not a true run clogger, but he's a nice depth piece there. So for Dallas, especially if you make the move back to a 3-4 scheme like you had under Wade Phillips, you had better find a true run clogger. Crawford can fit that role, but nose guard becomes even one of your bigger needs. So what is the biggest need on defense for the Dallas Cowboys? I know many of you will mention corner or safety. We'll get to that in a little bit, I promise. I do wonder, though, if you make a move to a 3-4 scheme, maybe you can shuffle around your linebacking core, and maybe edge rusher isn't as big of a need as it otherwise had appeared. But let me know what you guys think in the comments section. Now, as the Cowboys coaching search for assistants moves on, we will keep you updated. We will have draft targets for you. That's coming out later this week. We'll have in-depth looks at team needs, the latest rumors, free agency, the draft, all of it. So if it's your first time watching the show, hit that big red button and subscribe to us here on the Cowboys Report. We're going to have a ton of videos out for you guys. You'll be the smartest guy in the room talking about the Cowboys if you just subscribe and watch our videos. All right, linebacker. This is where you could have some drastic changes for the Dallas Cowboys if you make the switch to a 3-4 scheme. The archetypes remain the same in terms of what you're looking for. You have off-ball linebackers, which right now is all of these guys. You have edge rushers, which right now for the Cowboys, DeMarcus Lawrence, Quinn, Dorrance Armstrong, etc. You have the more interior guys, Malik Collins. But if you make the move to a 3-4 scheme, I know what you pay Jalen Smith for, to be a middle linebacker. If you move to a 3-4 scheme, I wonder if you use Jalen Smith more as an edge rusher. He did it at Notre Dame. He was actually pretty darn good at it. You probably let him play all over the field. But if you have Leighton Vander Esch healthy, maybe you could bring back Sean Lee for one more year. And for those of you asking, geez, well, so the Cowboys draft another linebacker? If you're sticking in a 4-3 scheme, not early. Makes no sense. But if you move Jalen full-time to edge rusher, well, then linebacker does become a bigger need for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, regardless, you're still going to have a situation where you're playing in nickel a bunch, so it's not as important, the scheme differentiation, as it was, 10, 15, 20 years ago. But it does matter, especially for a player like Jalen Smith, who maybe the Cowboys do move. So where should the Cowboys play? Type I for inside linebacker. That is more of the middle linebacker, the weak side linebacker. I for inside linebacker, and O for outside linebacker. That is more of the edge rusher. I'm not talking about 4-3 both. I'm talking different schemes there. So let me know what you guys think in the comments section. Also have a deal for you guys, and while you're in the comments, check it. We'll have the link for you. It's chatsports.com/Cowboys hats. A variety of hats are on sale right now, up to 40% off. Many of you said you would never buy Cowboys gear again if Jason Garrett was the head coach. Well, he's not. So you can get back going and get yourself some new Cowboys gear to celebrate the new Cowboys coaching staff coming in. That's chatsports.com/Cowboys hat. Reminder, it's in the description and the comments as well. We'll make note of the secondary here. Nothing drastically changes. I think linebackers have a bigger impact. That's kind of Mike Nolan's specialty. But you got a lot of free agents there, right? Byron Jones, Jeff Heath, Godwin, Anthony Brown, Thompson, Frazier. Maybe you want to find a bigger body down there at the strong safety spot. Maybe you bring back Jeff Heath as your number 3 special team star, and you find, we can all hope for Jamal Adams, right? That's still on the table here. But the secondary, depending on what Mike Nolan does, the scheme changes. You're not going to be playing so much off coverage, but the roles they play, outside corner, nickel, strong safety, free safety, those aren't going to be as drastically effective. So one more time, grade the hire of Mike Nolan as the Cowboys defensive coordinator. Not officially set in stone, but it's pretty much a done deal here. Probably be announced at the exact same time the Cowboys have their Mike McCarthy head coach press conference. But it's A, B, C, D, or F. Hey Cowboys fans, thanks for watching the Cowboys Report. If you haven't already, click right here to subscribe to our channel for all the best Cowboys coverage on the internet. That's news, rumors, highlights, mailbags, film studies, and a whole lot more. And I'm making your lives a little bit easier as well with the next Cowboys Report video right here.